Superheroes, apparently not content with only dominating comic books and the big screen, are now trying to muscle their way into our living rooms via our TV sets. Take a look at this trailer from Fox's anticipated new show, Gotham. And here to tell us more about this cultural invasion is WSJ reporter John Jurgensen. John, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
So it seems all the TV execs now have a superhero or two in their pockets. What small screen superheroes can we expect to see this fall?
Well, probably the most famous among the superheroes on a name recognition would be the Flash, and he is the kind of the biggest superhero coming to TV in the fall. He's going to be on the CW. Of course, The Fastest Man Alive has kind of spun off of The Arrow, where he appeared last year. That was another show on the CW. It's been very successful for the network, and has sort of proved as launching pad for the Flash. So it's very much a comic book, traditional superhero, superpowered driven show, which is a little bit different from most of the comics driven shows on TV now. You don't see a lot of actual superheroes. There's a bit of a distinction there,
right?
Considering the tights and the powers and things like that. Most of the comic book adaptations are people that don't have superpowers, like the ones you see in Gotham.
Right. All right. So still, I'm imagining that these networks are thinking that superheroes or that sort of genre is so money right now. Can you tell us what superheroes have meant for the movie business thus far?
Yeah, think about the blockbusters that have filled the multiplexes for decades now. Marvel Studios alone, 10 films in the last 6 years that have made about $7 billion worldwide, including the big summer hit Guardians of the Galaxy. And they're cranking out at full tilt, filling the theater. So it makes sense that with TV, especially being so hot right now and offering a lot of opportunities to spread those franchises around a little bit, and especially in the case of Marvel, do some cross storytelling. Marvel launched a series last year, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and is launching another one in the winter, Agent Carter. So there's a lot of cross storytelling being told in the Marvel universe.
But John, we know how sophisticated and demanding TV audiences are these days. So it's certainly not a given that this success will cross over to TV, right?
Yeah, it's a very different thing to want to spend a couple hours at a dark movie theater watching a cool fantasy play out on the big screen with lots of big effects and storytelling. It's a very different thing to want to spend up to 22 episodes of a TV season following these characters, especially in some cases where you're not necessarily seeing the big brand superheroes. Gotham, which we started with, takes place in the town of Batman, but this takes place before Batman even really exists.
Right.
We see Bruce Wayne and the moment where his parents are killed. It's sort of a formative moment for him, but Batman himself is not in this show, and I think that's one thing that the producers have tried to make very clear and have spent a lot of time explaining, but I think they have a clear idea for how they're going to make this show very rich, based a lot around also the villains that emerges in the Batman world.
So have you seen a lot of these pilots yet? What do you think of these shows?
I mean, the great thing about these shows, and I think a lot of the producers would stress this too, is they're very different styles. You know, the style of The Flash, which is very comic booky, is a lot different from Gotham, which has kind of like that darker edge, more of a gritty edge, and has a lot of ways sort of a crime procedural that we're used to. Very different show than those two. Also on NBC, which we haven't mentioned, Constantine, which is more of an occult supernatural show about this exorcist who has to vanquish demons and other bad guys. So very different styles, and also they come from different comic properties. So even if you're not necessarily a fan of one or the other of these comics, you may find yourself watching these shows without necessarily being aware of their deep history on the printed page from the DC or Marvel universe.
And you've discovered that all of this Marvel mania has created a new breed of TV exec, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference with a lot of these properties now is they're very much in the hands of comic book people, you know, folks who grew up reading comic books, who actually wrote comic books, and know these characters inside and out and sort of every beat of these characters. as opposed to some of the days of the past, some of the TV comic book shows, which may have been done under licensing, these one-off shows that were sort of powered by TV executives who didn't necessarily come from that world and made some very questionable decisions, often some funny ones. So now I think with the comic book geeks in charge of a lot of the storytelling, you have a lot more consistency, authenticity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for a mainstream audience, and that's what network TV really has to be, a show that speaks to a lot of people, not just the fanboys.
Right, we'll see if it takes off, but at least for now, Mom and Dad, let your kids read comic books. There could be a lucrative career at the end of it. All right, thanks so much, John, for that.